another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, we're going to have a great time. Here's what we're going to do this afternoon. We're going to make a stop by Nosara Paradise Fishing out in Nosara, Costa Rica, get my billfish fix for the week, and then head to Florida. There is lots of good fishing going on around the state this week. This South Florida sailfish bite in the second half of July is unlike anything I've ever seen. We'll make sure and check in with John Earhart. We're going to work our way all the way down the East Coast and then all the way up the West Coast. Find out what the red snapper bite's like. Find out how the snook are doing. You want to learn about what's going on in Florida? You're at the right place. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast is brought to you this week and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people back to nature. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream billfish destination. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. All right, get your pen and paper ready now. We got an extra treat tonight. We're going to get some of the recipes for the favorite fish dish of some of the experts around the state. We'll be back with more Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast right after a word from our sponsor. Yeah, it's finally getting hot, all right, and that means the water is warming up too. And just like the great fish always do, the biggest and the baddest of so many species we fished for will soon be holding in deeper water in an attempt to cool off. You name it, if it feeds deeper in the water column, it can't refuse the D.O.A. Terrorize. The Terrorize dives straight down and crawls across the bottom with an action that no deep feeder can resist. Whether it's a crappie deep under some lily pads or a tarpon rooting around some bridge pilings, D.O.A. makes the size and color Terrorize that they just can't say no to. Flashing that big bright eye in front of any bottom-feeding game fish is just unfair. Maybe that's why they call D.O.A. lures the unfair advantage. All right, let's run over to Costa Rica and get it rolling with a quick word from our man Craig Sutton. Woo, I tell you what, every time we go to Nosara, I want to stay. I want a cool drink. I want my guys ready to go catch me a marlin. I want an early morning. I'll watch the monkeys. I'm always ready to be there, Craig Sutton. How are things in Nosara?
Real good, Ricky. You know, we're not getting near the rain.
Huh.
We got a little bit of showers around that moon like we normally do, but not what we normally get. And I don't know if it's a repercussion of the leaf still sucking the moisture out, but it's a little late for that. But fish are biting. We did have a hiccup day last Friday, the day of that full moon, but the sales popped right back up. But we haven't caught a marlin in 4 days.
I'll be darned. That's
kind of rare.
Pretty long stretch for you, isn't it?
Yeah, compared to what the rest of the year's been, but the sales they're nice numbers on sales.
Good deal.
You know, raising 5, 6, 7, 8, and a few smaller yellowfin. No real big yellowfin the last few days, but some, good eating 30, 40, that kind of stuff.
I got news for you, buddy. A 40-pound yellowfin is all I want. And this time next year, it'll be down to 38 pounds.
Well, I want to get me one of those real big 200-pounders. I've got a 160-pounder, but I haven't gotten a 200-plus yet.
Oh, you're stronger than I am.
I had one to November, but, I had my shot at one in November, but that's okay. I'll get another one.
Yep. Hey, Craigie, what's your favorite fish to eat?
I'm a mahi guy, but I sure do like trigger.
Oh yeah.
So between one of those two, and I don't care how it's fixed. I like them every way I've ever had it. Really, just foul.
Yep. But I tell you now, you give me that old gray trigger and leave the skin on him, and let me put him on the grill and coat him with a crab cake. I'm gonna tell you what now.
That's some good stuff.
If Carrie Underwood was coming to my house for dinner tomorrow night, that's what I'd cook.
Oh yeah, me too. Cook her whatever she wanted to cook.
Oh, I know, but that's me at my best when I can do that now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But that trigger's hard to beat.
Oh yeah.
But that mahi's pretty good too now.
Very good. Yep, we got to make sure that we've always got plenty of them to keep us fed, and we'll be in good shape. Craigie, get the Marlin crank back up. Let's talk together next week and find out what happened to the bite.
All right, brother. Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Craig. Craig Sutton checking in for Nosara Paradise Fishing. That means it's time to hit Florida, and we start there up in the northeast corner with Captain David Voorhees.
Hey, Ricky.
David, how are you?
Doing fine, buddy.
I got a question for you. What rain gear do you wear?
I have this thing by Frog Tog that is like a real, it's not their normal stuff. It's really, really thin and lightweight.
Uh-huh.
And I think I get it from Academy Sports. I forgot what it's called, but it's really, really, really light. I mean, you could almost fold this thing up and stick it in your front pocket.
You've worn it quite a bit lately, haven't you?
No, I try to avoid it as much as possible. I run from it.
Well, you're a good man. I tell you what, there's been plenty of rain in northeast Florida. Tell me how your fishing is.
Fishing has been on fire for me. I have been blessed. I've been really lucky. I mean, it's been good. It's been real good. We've done good on high water fish, and I've been doing good on low water fish. Found a whole bunch of flounder this week. The flounder bite's been one of the best I've seen. One day this week we had 4 flounder, and they were all, pretty good sized flounder, and 3 of them were in the 3 to 4 pound range. Big reds. I mean, it's just been a great week. Plenty of mangrove snappers that are nice sized mangrove snappers. Few trout here and there. So I've been able to mix it all up, and people have been bringing home mixed bags of fish, and which has been pretty good.
David, I'm going to tell you what, if I just can't wait for September, if these mangroves continue to grow at the rate they're growing at, we're going to have a banner crop.
Yep. I think we're going to see some really big ones. I tell you what, I mean, listening to you on the radio the other day, how some of yours, I'm telling you, I've mixed it up. I've moved to different locations. I'm surprised that some of the locations I'm finding these snappers, some spots that I have never caught snapper on before, I'm catching snapper on them.
Huh.
So they're all over the place. I mean, I'm catching them, way up there by JTB, and I'm catching them, all the way down by where Pablo Creek enters into the St. Johns River.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now it seems to me, David, it's primarily rocks for them, isn't it? Isn't that their best?
Well, territory? I thought that, Rick. But after this week, when on this high water, we worked a lot of the grass. At high water, I fished right along the edge of the grass. We worked down the shoreline. We're looking for quick reactionary strikes. I mean, we're not sitting very long in one place. I got the trolling motor down. It's basically like bass fishing. You flip a shrimp and jig right up against the grass. You wait 20, 30 seconds. If you don't have a bite, you move on to the next. You go down 10 more feet and keep working the shoreline and working points and flats. And I'm surprised how many mangroves I've caught doing that.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. It seems like it's just a banner year. It's been a banner year offshore. It's a banner year inshore. Their population seems very much to me like it's on the upswing. Now, David, we haven't really had, we got a low tide pretty late now. Have you seen any backing fish lately? Have you seen any with their backs out?
Not really what I call backing, but I've got a group of fish I've been on, and these are really big reds. And they're staying down in the deep water, and then all of a sudden they come up into the shallow, and they're feeding on these finger mullet. And the finger mullet right now are just like 1.5 to 2 inches long.
Ooh, sweet.
And they're coming up in there and just destroying them. But anything you flip up in there, you're pretty much you're gonna catch them. And I'm seeing a lot of that, which that's just been fantastic. But something I got to tell you, Rick, and you know Johnston Island, right?
Sure, yeah.
Well, Johnston Island, the northern end of it, there's a little piece that's separated off from the main island, It's a little northern piece, a little marsh piece of it. And it has at least 7 mangrove trees growing on it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And these are the northernmost mangrove trees that I know of.
I'll be darned. You know what? I see them, and I'd never thought of that.
And I've for many years, just south of Pine Island, just right south of Pine Island, was a little grove of mangrove trees, and I've always told people this is the northernmost batch of mangrove trees, and it was for many years. No longer is that the case. And now the north end of Johnson Island has mangrove trees on it.
How about that?
You can believe that. Yep.
For those who aren't familiar with Johnson Island, it's the island that's under the Atlantic Boulevard Bridge, right?
Yep. So, Now, before that, there were mangrove trees just south of the 210 bridge. Now they're already north of the Atlantic Boulevard Bridge.
How about that?
That's quite how many miles? That's what, Rick? 15, maybe even 20 miles?
Oh, I think it's at least 30 miles, David, from the 210 bridge.
Yeah, it's quite a distance. It's quite a distance. So, that's amazing to me. Anybody who thinks, there's global warming isn't taking place, I'm absolutely, living proof. I've seen what's happened over the past 20 years, and having mangrove trees this far north is very unusual.
Very unusual indeed. Not sure if it's good or bad, but it's very unusual. David, what's your favorite fish to eat out of everything you catch?
Without a doubt. Well, it's flounder, without a doubt.
Fixed
towel. Pardon?
Cooked towel, fixed towel. What's your recipe?
Well, it's so funny. When I was a kid growing up, flounder was my mom's favorite food. And if I ever filleted it, boy, she got mad. She wanted the whole flounder. She wanted it scaled, just the head cut off, and that's how she liked to cook her flounder whole. And over the years, I have come up with a recipe, and it's an orange ginger glaze that I make.
Come on now.
And what I do, Rick, is I take it, I keep it whole, I scale it, gut it, head it, score the meat, and I just lightly salt and pepper and just dust it with flour. And I quick fry it in a big pan with about 3 inches of oil. So the skin is nice and crispy. Comes out of the fryer, goes on a plate, and I pour the hot orange ginger glaze over there. And Rick, I'll make that for you one day. And I'm telling you, if you don't think it's one of the best dishes you put in your mouth, I'll be surprised.
Whew, man, that sounds good to me. I tell you what, in a 14, 15-inch fish is perfect for that, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep.
I like that. Captain David, as always, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can talk with you next week.
You know where I'll be, Rick.
Hi, Cap. We'll talk to you next week. Captain David Voorhees. Our thanks to Captain David Voorhees for a great Northeast Florida report and a great flounder recipe. Let's take it down to Jim Ross in East Central. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are you doing this
Outstanding. Any fish biting down there this week?
Leading into the full moon, the bite was pretty good. A lot of big king mackerel came to the beach. Those fish that we were getting out on the reef, those 6, 8, 10, 12 pounders, I guess as they moved inshore, they swelled up because the average fish was 15 to 22, and we got some fish up into the upper 30 and low 40 range as well, coming into the beach to spawn. Big females, also some big males. I had one male that, I don't know how big they get, but I had one male that weighed about 22 pounds that I cleaned earlier this week. I was kind of surprised. You don't normally see the males that big. But the other thing that happened this week, as we're slow trolling for the king mackerel, we got a lot of cobia showing up. A surprising number of cobia. Now, a lot of those fish are undersized. They're 30 to 32 inches at the fort, so they're not quite where they need to be. And so what we've been trying to tell everybody is, hey, make sure you're not gaffing this fish. You want to put those fish in a net or on a boga grip or something to that effect. It's a little easier to release those things when they don't have a big hole stuck in the side of them from your gaff. So, but a lot of fish that were in 20 to 40 pound class as well. We had quite a few of them, right at 30, 28, 30 pounds. Quite a few of them that came in. So, that's a nice little bycatch whenever you're catching the king mackerel, and all of a sudden you see a brown fish or two swim up next to the boat. And of course, you want to have a pitch rod, a jig rod ready, so that you can get something in front of them real quickly. And that's what we try to keep available at all times. Is some kind of a jig, either a bucktail or a rubber tail jig, or a live bait pitch rod that you can pitch out and get those cobia the second that they swim up to the boat.
Jim, I've got to tell you, and I watched Larry Zonka's Alaska show and all this stuff for so many years, and I laughed at those great big landing nets and how they always netted those big salmon, and I'm like, why don't you gaff the silly things and throw them in the boat? I was backwards. Let me tell you something. Forgetting about king mackerel and wahoo that have teeth that'll go through a net, a cobia, a grouper, a snapper, a mahi, they're all better behaved if you net them instead of gaffing them, and you don't ruin any meat.
Exactly.
All right, we're getting recipes tonight. Jimmy, what's your favorite fish to eat out of what you catch?
Well, Rick, we've been catching the cobia lately, so I've had a chance to eat a couple of those. They're still one of my favorites. And I'm a simple guy. I want to catch those fish. I want to flay them up and, nice little chunks and just put them in some batter and fry them. And I use a simple batter. You can use anything you want, really, but, Bisquick or even some kind of a flour breading like that. And I typically take a little bit of Tony Sacheries and a little bit of Old Bay and spice it up a little bit, and then just roll it in that and deep fry it. It's a simple recipe. It's been working for years, and so I'm just sticking with it because it's a good one and it's easy to do.
Fried cobia is hard to beat. Jim, we appreciate it as always. Have you heard anything from the offshore guys?
Not much this week. We had that little bit of dolphin spurt last week, but I haven't heard of much of anything this week other than the sandbar sharks are absolutely tearing up every jack that the guys took out on the deeper wreck.
Yeah, they're voracious, no doubt about it. Thank you, Jimmy. We'll talk with you next week if that's okay.
I look forward to it, Rick.
All right, buddy. Captain Jim Ross giving us our East Central report. Now let's kick it on down to my very favorite fishing village. Used to be called the sailfish capital of the world. Almost acts like it's trying to reclaim that title. How we doing, Captain John Earhart?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Man, sailfish has been crazy in July, hasn't it?
Yeah, it looks like you were right. That full moon's got them chewing again. Guys are going out fishing pretty much straight out front of the inlet, and they're catching as many as 10 to 15 sailfish a trip right now. So make sure you got plenty of live bait in the morning. Head out to about 90, maybe 150 feet of water. A lot of times you can see them free jumping, so they're pretty easy to spot. Set up in that general area, and you would either troll, drift, or anchor down with your trolling motor if you're fishing a bay boat. Some guys like to do that, and just drifting those baits behind the boat on a float or pulling them behind a couple of dredges, mylar dredges typically, is going to yield pretty good success right now.
It's as good as I've seen it, John. It really, really is. I've been fortunate to fish several days down there, June and July, and loved every minute of it. What's going on besides sailfish?
The nearshore fishing, believe it or not, has been pretty good for cobia. I've seen a lot of guys catching like 2 to 5 cobias every other day. I've seen a couple swimming around with manta rays this week, so it seems like we've got a little influx of cobia in the region right now. So definitely have a flare hawk or a red tail hawk jig tied on. So if you see one free swimming, you can cast a jig to it quickly and add that to the collection in the box. Always be prepared because those things swim up and they swim away just as fast as they swim up. So you want to be prepared so you can capitalize on the opportunity if it presents itself. We've been catching a lot of snappers on the 6 and the 8 mile reef this week, mostly mutton snappers, some mangroves, a lot of lane snappers, vermilions. So that's been pretty good, fishing long leaders. There's been some amberjacks mixed in, so I'd expect amberjacks, cobia, snapper when I'm bottom fishing, and plenty of sailfish and some kingfish mixed in too. So we've got good all-around action.
You really do. So far for July, it's been an outstanding July for Florida. It seems like the water isn't as hot as we've had to deal with the last few summers, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. I tell you what are you hearing inshore? The snook's still spawning?
Yeah, the spawn's still going on. We've got a lot of big breeders at the inlet, a lot of small males chasing those big females around. So there's plenty of action. You know, I definitely have a couple different size baits in the live well, so you can target the big breeders, but also catch plenty of those small males just to have plenty of action for the day and get those snook numbers up. Been some Jack Crevells mixed in, some large snappers, got a few nice bear snappers this week, some dog snappers. So it's kind of nice to get, you know, a couple for the box too while you're snook fishing, you know, because that's all catch and release right now. There has been a few tarpon going down the beach and inside the river this week too. Live mullet, if you can find them, is going to definitely be the bait of choice.
Gotcha. No sign of mullet on the beach yet, huh?
No, we haven't seen any mullet on the beach, but there has been plenty of small pilchards. We've seen some large pilchards a little bit deeper, you know, about 30, 40 feet, and a lot of thread fins and some sardines mixed in. So if you're not purchasing bait from the bait guys, you can pretty easily head out both north or south along the beach there and find some bait sabiki this week.
Great. Boy, that can't make fishing any easier than that. I love it, John. Thanks so much for the report. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yep, I'll check in with y'all next week.
Okay, our thanks to Captain John Earhart from the Chaos and the Mayhem.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, you know, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to John Earhart, where he said he's also seeing more cobia than usual. Man, that's good news, because I've been worried about cobia for a while. Let's shift it on down to Miami and check in with the mayor of South Beach, one Alan Sherman. Alan, how are you?
Doing okay, Rick, and yourself?
Outstanding. Are you kidding me? It's been a good July for us up here in North Florida. How about for you?
Well, July is always a hot month for us, and this one's no different. This is when they talk about the summer doldrums. Well, we're in the midst of that for sure. So on the offshore scene, it's all about getting out first thing in the morning and then getting off the water at about 10:30, 11 o'clock, because by then the temperatures are up into the high 80s, low 90s, and the fish have shut off pretty much for the day, and at least until the late afternoon when they fire back up again. So the guys getting in the fishing early are catching kingfish on the reef, a lot of bonitas, some blackfin tunas, a few wahoo, barracudas, and of course some sharks, and that's mostly on the, on or near the surface up until about 10 o'clock. After that point, it starts to get hot. The fish are dropping down, and now to get a bite, you got to get your baits close to the bottom, and you do that by adding a little bit of a lead sinker, a long leader to your rig, and that's helping you get more strikes. But the fish are not real active for those late morning, early afternoon hours. Getting closer to 5 o'clock, they start to turn on again. They'll be back up on the surface, and then you'll see more of the sailfish. I forgot to mention sailfish. They are getting some sailfish. We don't do a lot of trolling for sailfish off of Miami, but there hasn't been any quality bait fish around recently. So a lot of the guys are putting some feathers out with strips of bonitas, and they're actually running into some sailfish like that.
Oh, yeah.
You guys fish that way?
Oh, we always have. We always have, Alan. I would say that the first 30 years of my fishing career, I had never used a live bait. We pulled ballyhoo and strips, and I'd like to have a $10 bill for every sailfish we ever caught on a strip bait.
When I was a younger person, that's how they fished for them here in Miami as well. And then people discovered how deadly the live bait fishery was, the kites and stuff like that. And they've never turned back. They only do it out of desperation, troll a feather with a ballyhoo or a strip for sailfish. But it does work. Well, it's just not done very often.
Keep in mind, when we're fishing our edge of the Gulf Stream, it's a 68-mile run. That means that we have to leave before the sun comes up, and we can't spend a lot of time catching bait. So it's almost mandatory for us when we get there to pull strips and ballyhoo, because if you wait to catch live bait, you're going to be pulling up to the ledge at the crack of 11:30, and as you well know, that middle time of the day is not your favorite time to catch fish.
And that's what we're talking about here right now. There's been quite a few dolphin offshore, and we just got past the full moon, and those fish were real finicky over the weekend. Now that we're past that, we should start seeing them be a little more, easy to catch. They were under birds, mostly snooty terns, and chasing little bait fish that you could hardly see. But there were big schools out there if you could get them to eat. And that was the big problem. They just seemed to be turning down artificial lures and cut bait. But, each school was different. I was out there on Friday and struggling, and I watched the charter boat sit probably for 30 minutes while I was chasing the birds around. And I know they weren't sitting and not catching fish. So whatever they were doing was working. So there has been quite a few fish out there. There's no big weed patches, but there's lots of weed lines.
Gotcha.
And probably the downside to all of this is it's way offshore. We were in 1,100 to 1,200 feet of water, and that seemed to be where everybody was concentrating their efforts.
I see. All right. Well, Alan, that sounds like an excellent report. How about back in the freshwater? Are they catching peacocks?
They are killing the peacocks. I don't know where the largemouth go. Because I'm not seeing any pictures of largemouth, but lots and lots of peacocks. So the residential canals are doing well, and the canals in the conservation areas where you don't usually see the peacocks have held tremendous numbers of them this year. And that's pretty interesting because that's not something that's normal.
Good deal. Good deal. All right, Captain Allen, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I look forward to it, Rick.
Okay. All right, it's time to head on south down to Alamorada, but before we do that, let's have a word from Shimano. Funkin' Wagnalls defines symmetry as similar parts combined in perfect balance. Shimano and Strike Zone define symmetry as the perfect spinning combo for whatever your target is this summer. You can't beat the balance and performance of the Shimano Symmetry spinners for freshwater and inshore saltwater fishing. Outfits like Symmetry are the main reason for shopping at a place like Strike Zone. Not only are the Shimano Symmetry spinners the perfect balance between rod and reel, they're also on sale at Strike Zone for $99. One of the biggest mistakes most anglers make is fishing outfits that are out of balance. If you try to balance your own outfit, you can never get the most out of your cast inshore or put the maximum pressure on a sea monster offshore. The symmetry between Strike Zone and Shimano, the perfect balance for all your fishing needs. All right, now we're going to pull into Alamorada and check in with one Nick Stanzik, who's just back from his vacation, where I understand a couple of blue marlin are now wearing the tag of shame. Is that true, Nick?
We did catch a couple of them, yep. We were aboard the Catch-22, and with my Uncle Scott, my dad Richard, found a couple blues there a few weeks ago on our way through the Bahamas to search some Caicos and caught a couple yellowfin tuna and plenty of snappers deep dropping.
Oh, that's cool. So you ate good and you caught blue marlin. That's hard to beat. What's been going on in Alamorada while you were gone?
Well, I got back about, I guess, around 10 or 12 days ago myself, and we caught a few swordfish. Not this past week, the week before, we did get one keeper sword and a couple of small ones. We actually caught a big blue marlin here in between swordfish drops, which was a nice surprise because we had just gone 600 miles the other way trying to catch them. But the last week here, there's been some dolphin caught. It slowed down a little bit the last few days. But on the reef, we went this morning just for fun for a couple hours. We caught some mangrove snappers. They're spawning. Caught one mutton. We lost a few muttons. And the yellowtail bite was decent. We caught a handful of yellowtails as well.
Oh, man. Boy, I tell you what. I hope you appreciate where you live because everybody else on the planet is jealous. I promise you. Captain Nick, as always, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
We'll be here. Give us a shout.
All right. Get back in the groove. Catch some more swordfish. We'll talk to you next week. All right. Thanks to Nick Stanczyk. Gosh, a couple of blue marlin, a couple of yellowfin tuna. Not much to it. Let's head on over to 10,000 Islands. Check in with Captain Steve Dahl. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. How are you?
Doing wonderful, my boy. Wonderful. Tell me about fishing in 10,000 Islands this week.
Well, fishing's been good, especially in the backcountry. Despite really high water temperatures, we're flirting with 90-degree water temps right now, but fish are still responsive, and I think a lot of it's we just have a plethora of bait in the area, and bait's not hard to come by. Lots of pilchards in the area, and the snook and redfish are definitely cooperating. So I think the keys are throughout the month is look at those full and new moon periods where you got the stronger tides. That way you got some moving water and kind of fires up the bite a little bit as that water's just so high, or that water temperature is so high. So having those really strong tides, I think, really accelerates the bite. So, typical patterns, though, fishing along the mangroves, some of the bigger snook are being, caught on some, deeper banks, if you will. So if you can find, that's pretty easy to find in our area, too, because we have so many large tributaries, if you will, that kind of flow into basically rivers that flow, basically north to south out of, the Everglades. And notably, we probably got a good 7 or 8 of those from Chokoloskee all the way to Marco Island. So keep that in mind, focusing on those bigger passes, Dismal Key Pass, Sandfly, the Chatham River, things of that avail. So that's kind of where the bigger snook are kind of congregating here in the dog days of summer. So pretty stellar bite, though. It's been pretty good.
That's really good. I tell you, I'm constantly amazed by the fact that we put tight limits on snook with a slot to where you could keep a fish that wasn't involved in spawning, and it just worked so fantastic. And we've done the same thing with redfish, and it's worked so fantastic, and we haven't learned a thing.
Yep. No, we really haven't. That's the shame of it, come on, let's look at history here.
Yep.
There's some success stories out there, and we can do it with other species.
We sure
that's
can.
the challenge.
Hey, Steve, let me ask you, out of the fish you catch, what's your favorite to eat?
Oh, no doubt. I think everybody kind of knows at this point I'm a big triple tail guy. You put a piece of triple tail in front of me, that's my jam.
I need to know. I haven't caught enough yet. Now, everyone I've eaten has been fantastic, but I don't have a go-to triple tail recipe, so lay one on me.
Oh, man, I've got probably my favorite is I think a lot of the mild fish pair real well with some citrus. And I make a pineapple and mango chutney, and I kind of pair it with that. And it's you can kind of season it to taste. I put, some diced onions in there, some red peppers. You can put a little heat in it to kind of, balance out the sweet, if you will. But I take a brown sugar reduction first. And it's almost kind of like a glaze. And you kind of drizzle that right over the triple tail, lightly, and then put your chutney on top of it, and it's incredible. So what I like to do with the pineapple, Rick, is a little tip, and you can do this with a bunch of different fish with smaller fillets, whether it's snapper, trout, things of that avail. If you make that pineapple chutney, you can kind of keep the planks, if you will, and then you can grill your fish on it. It's almost like a cedar plank
right
on the grill. obviously put it bark side down, if you will, and then obviously, it kind of gets a citrus infusion into your fish. Try that. It's really good.
Ah, I like the sound of that. I promise you. Outstanding fishing report and a great trip-to recipe. Thank you so much, Captain Steve Dahl.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, buddy. You got it. Captain Steve. Our thanks to Captain Steve Dahl for a great fishing report and a great report on cooking triple tail. That was a fine recipe. Let's move up to the West Central area and find out what's happening with Ray Markham. Hello, Raymond.
Howdy doody.
Howdy doody to you. How in the world are you?
Oh, well, fresh back from my cast. Spent most of the week over in Orlando last week attending that and looking at all what's new and everything else. So hopefully by the time all this red tide clears out of here, we'll go back and use some of that new stuff on them.
Boy, is it getting any better, Ray?
Not at the moment. We've got some west winds that keep pushing it right into shore, and so for the time being, we're just going to have to sit and wait until things clear up. We had another spill, if you want to call it that, this last week out of St. Petersburg and Smacks Bayou that added more fuel to the fire. So, stuff like that happening is just delaying whatever repair or that is coming about with this red tide thing. So, as soon as all these municipalities get their act together, stop doing stuff like that, I think maybe then we'll start seeing some improvement. So, but the guys offshore are having a field day. I mean, it's been crazy. Most guys are saying that they've pretty much given up trying to get live bait, keep it alive, and take it out offshore. However, it doesn't appear that anybody's complaining that frozen bait's working. They've got anything from cigar minnow, squid, grunts, ladyfish, pinfish, sardines, you name it, octopus, all of it. Frozen, stuck in the cooler on the way out there is catching a variety of things. Lots and lots of different kinds of snapper. We had full moon last week, and they took advantage of that. Lots of mangrove snapper, lanes, vermilions, red snapper, you name it. Everything out there is just whacking baits. They're saying pretty much if you want red grouper for the guys that are having smaller boats and don't really feel comfortable about getting out more than about 30 miles or so, if they're heading offshore and starting at about 60 to 80 feet off of Bradenton, Sarasota area, and around 80 feet off of Pinellas and Pasco, they're doing pretty well with red grouper, and starting at about that point and beyond for gags. I believe amberjack and not sure, but maybe I think it was one other species opened the first of the month. So guys got a variety of things to fish for offshore.
What are you hearing anything on? You hearing anything on kingfish?
No, we don't have lots of kingfish this time of year, and the guys that are catching them are usually catching them on the deep offshore reefs, usually at around 100 feet or more. The water temperature in nearshore waters is probably just too warm for them, and the availability of bait in that area is probably not going to be that great. So they tend to hang on deeper wrecks and that kind of thing, starting at around 80 to 100 feet. But, like I say, there's lots of stuff that is available out there. I'm sitting there thinking I almost wish I liked frozen fish, and then I might even have something left over from when it was open.
Yeah. It's hard to beat fresh. You do realize that attached to us there are some other coastal states, but attached to all the coastal states are 30-something states that never, ever really found out what fresh fish is, don't you?
Well, yeah, I understand that. But you know something? There's one thing that I did find out. Years ago, I would never eat a redfish unless I skinned it.
No.
Yeah, I know. And, of course, I learned later on that a bunch of my friends from Louisiana, they do something like they call redfish on the half shell.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm going, huh? But real simple. You got half the fish cleaning job. You basically fillet it. You leave the skin on. Make sure the bones are out if that's an issue for you. But I usually take all the bones out of it. Then I will take and put it on a piece of foil and close the whole thing up. After I take the juice of 2 or 3 lemons and put it on there, and about a quarter of a stick of butter cut up in little pats. Roll all that foil up. Heat up the grill to about 500, 550. Put the enclosed foil with redfish on it, and just leave it in there for about 5 minutes. Open up the foil, poke a few holes in the foil in the bottom, and the butter starts dripping down on the coals, either charcoal or in your gas grill. And then when that starts smoking, just close the lid, leave it for about another 4 or 5 minutes, and until it flakes. And I'm telling you, the butter flavor, the lemon, and throw some pepper on it, and man, that is like hog heaven right there.
That's good stuff. I wasn't hungry when I called you, Ray. I am now. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate it as always. We'll check with you next week.
You bet. You tell Captain William Tony I'm going to come up and scarf some of his redfish from him.
I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll talk to him next. Thank you, Ray Markham. Our thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report and a great redfish recipe. And let me tell you, Ray and all of our action spotters every week are brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature back together. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Tournament Master Chum, it's the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flats bay and offshore hybrids? Hey, I run a Young Boat. You should too. Check them out at youngboats.com. My thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report. Now we're going to pull up into the Big Bend, and I got a feeling, I know what I want from William Tony. I want that doggone shore lunch recipe he's always talking about. Are you with us, William?
I'm here, and you know what? When you said shore lunch, my mouth started watering.
All right, give me your fishing report first, then we'll talk eating.
Okay, all right, fishing report right now. We've got spread tides, coming this week, so looking forward to the weekend coming up. You're going to have an incoming tide early in the morning, which is good for your red fishing. And again, in our area, anywhere you see a lot of mullet, jumping mullet is an indication there's going to be some good red fishing in that area. Now, live shrimp, if you can find them, are been the best bait. Now, the next best thing would be live pinfish. So either way, you're going to be covered. What I do in my boat, if I don't get a lot of live shrimp, I keep one shrimp, a small little number 3, tiny little hair hooks, what I call it. On board, I got a $500 G Loomis green water rod that is my pinfish pole, and I catch them right there at the source. And a lot of times, I believe those redfish are there because they're used to feeding and tasting those pinfish that live in that area. So catching them right there, you're only taking a few that you need. At the end of the day, you don't have to dump them over the side or find some way to keep them alive. And trust me, there's plenty of them up here on the Big Bend. Now, trout, you got to get up very early. The bite kind of wanes out by 9 a.m., so daylight to 9 a.m. Catch a lot of trout. If it's calm, the D.O.A. 5.5-inch glow jerk bait has been doing the trick, but if we get a little bit of wind or there's a sea breeze, go with that popping cork, then using some Marilure Little Johns and watermelon red flake. Now, on the inshore rocks, the mangrove snapper bite's really hot right now, and there's some nice sea bass mixed in with them, so you can get the best of both worlds there. And once that tide starts to drop out, go out there, get your scallops, come back in, and have just a great weekend.
Golly, man, that sounds like an outstanding weekend. You said nice sea bass. What's your size limit on the sea bass?
On our side here at Big Bend are 10 inches. Today, some of our bigger fish were probably about 13 to 14, which is a good one.
That's a good one.
And about, 8 foot of water, 10 foot of water on light tackle. And if you find the right rock, now we'll talk about them real quick. What I like about sea bass, now, if you got a high profile rock that you're talking coming 2 to 3 feet off the bottom, probably not good for sea bass because grouper like those better, and they love eating sea bass. What I like are small, rubbly piles where the relief might only be a foot to half a foot, or sometimes just like a little hard honeycomb with little ledges. Those are your better areas for catching those sea bass.
Right, that's amazing. William, you know what I saw one time as a diver, and I never would have believed it if I hadn't seen it. I'm swimming along, and there's an eye looking out of the sand at me, okay? So, well, I know it's going to be a flounder, so I start thinking, well, I'm going to shoot this flounder. Let me see how big he is. And I look at it, and I look at it, and I start looking around, and William, I found a dozen or so very nice sea bass completely buried in attack mode, just like a flounder.
Really?
Yes, sir.
You know, I've seen them out there snorkeling around when they're, you know, scalloping and all that, and they like that kind of hard bottom, you know, so sponges and everything like that, and they're kind of curious. They're not really scared. In fact, I've caught two at a time on one jig where one inhales it and comes out of his gill, and another one eats that one. So now they're just tethered together. So, and even jumping out of the water at 8 and 10 foot. So, you know, they're very aggressive. But, you know, it's neat, the dynamics of what makes that, you know, sea bass. And a lot of times out trout fishing in deep water, we'll catch a lot of them just, you know, using a jig.
All right, I can't wait any longer. I've heard so much about the William Toney Shore Lunch, which, oh, by the way, I didn't get when I chartered William Toney, but everybody else does, I guess. But I want to hear.
You just got a request. You got a request, though.
I want to hear that. I want to hear the recipe for the William Toney Shore Lunch.
All right, this is what I do. First on a trip, you got to catch some fish. If you don't catch any fish, all you're going to get is a corn dog. So,
that was my problem. Okay.
So get out there, you catch a fish. So this is a homosassa recipe that our Homosassa Guides Association has kind of passed down through the years. So it's not distinctly mine. It's just what is morphed into my ordeal as a guide. But what we do is fry about a half a pound of bacon in about a 14-inch cast iron skillet in vegetable oil, and that seasons the oil. Now, when the bacon's done, all the fat's cooked out of it, so it's really good for you then. So, so you drain that bacon, and then I use a House Autry bit sweet onion hush puppy, and I make the hush puppies. But you got to use a lager or a heavy beer, a Budweiser, a Heineken, or something that has a lot of yeast in it, and I mix my hush puppies. That makes them big and fluffy. So then you do the hush puppies, and then my family makes the homemade guava jelly. So we do bacon and the hush puppies and the guava jelly as the appetizer. And next step, what I do is I like my fish, whether it be trout, redfish, sea bass, or whatever you got, lay them out, salt them, and then I pepper the mill. So whatever mill brand you like, or if you make your own with flour, cornmeal, whatever, I pepper it. I salt the fish, flour them, and always pat them off. You know, don't leave excess flour because that falls at the bottom of the pan and it burns, and you know it's no good.
Okay.
So fry them fish up nice and crispy, and then we got baked beans, coleslaw, and hush puppies all out on an island that's so fresh it's still wiggling when you eat it.
Man, that sounds good. How's your scalloping?
Scalloping's been great. You know what? I talked to a couple folks today that are out there. So west of St. Martin's Keys is one area out beyond the bird rack. So we're a little bit deeper, about 5 foot, and they're getting a little bit bigger from what I've seen from the beginning of July. So as we get into August, you know, we're going to be looking at bigger scallops. And there's also another spot down south off Hernando, off Pine Island in Bayport area. There's been boats down there. Now, I've been down in that area, and the grass is a little bit shorter, and it's a sandier bottom, so you see them a little better, but it can get deep. If you're going on a big high tide, you don't want to be in that area. But looking at this weekend, our tide's being spread out. Early morning, late evening, that middle part of the day is going to be the time that you want to be out there.
William, I did not understand because I haven't done much scalloping. I'd only been one time with you and one other time. I didn't understand the tide on scalloping, but I went out of Crystal River, out of Plantation there, and we got into a heavy tide, and I don't mind swimming against it. I'm a pretty strong swimmer, but man, when that grass lays over, it sure makes it hard to spot the scallops, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You know, when you get up toward us up in Citrus County and even up in Steenhatchee, in that area, we have big, tall turtle grass beds. And it could, you know, they could be 12 to 20 inches of just thick, tall grass. And when that tide lays it over, it makes it nearly impossible to see the scallops. So they always tell folks, you want to time it so when that tide drops to its lowest point, you're going to have about a 45-minute window where that grass is just straight up, and it's just going to be just like a pool, and you're going to be able to see them and just get so much more.
Gotcha. Outstanding tip. And a great recipe. Thank you so much, William. We enjoy it every week. Have you heard anything from offshore at all?
Offshore, there's been folks going out there still getting some red snapper. Lots of grouper coming to the dock, and bigger mangrove snappers than I've been catching inshore. The bigger mangrove snappers have been coming on select live shrimp. Gags have been on threadfin or frozen sardines on the bottom at about 30-foot range.
Perfect. I tell you what, it's been all around the state. It's been the best mangrove snapper season I can remember in a while. Thank you, William. We'll check in with you next week if that's all right.
Yep, I'll be right here in downtown Homosassa.
Keep them straight, buddy. Now it's time to hear from the snapper master himself, the godfather of the northwest portion of our state, one Captain Kevin Lanier. Kevin, how are you?
I'm still looking for the guy you're describing around here. I can't quite find him.
I want the guy that always tells me he's doing peachy.
Hey, I'm doing peachy, man. We had a great few days down in ICAST. It was great to get to see you and other people that we talked to a lot. So, but we didn't skip a beat here. Our guys, my deckhand ran the boat for me while I was gone. They caught fish. We got out yesterday. We caught limits red snapper. The king bite is just insane right now. So if you don't have flat lines out, you're crazy. We're catching some nice red snapper. We got one right about 20 pounds yesterday. It's been really good.
Mm-hmm. Good one. You seen any blackfin tuna this week?
Nope, no tuna this week. Although I will tell you that we've had a couple of things hit that flat line, and we couldn't stop them.
Oh,
so I don't know what they were.
You know what? That's what, when you're throwing a rubber worm in a lake and you get a bite, you know what it is.
Yep.
But when we're offshore, and we've all had it happen, I marlin fished in the Bahamas for years, and we caught some fantastic fish, Kevin. We were blessed with some great animals. But I can tell you that there were some times when we were just so outclassed it wasn't even funny. And isn't that what makes the ocean just so addictive?
Well, Captain Rick, I always tell my customers it's not the fish you catch that brings you back.
Yep.
It's that searching for that elusive fish that spooled the reel or did something that you just could not get him to the boat. That's what keeps you going back.
We caught a blue marlin in the Bahamas one year that I know was somewhere around 700 pounds. Obviously, we let her go. But not long after that, we had one eat a bait, cross across the back of the boat so fast that she cut 2 lines off, including my long outrigger, without ever even knocking it out of the pin. Now what in the world was that?
I've seen things like that too. I've seen one take the line out of the rigger and cut the other 2 as it went through. I understand that. I've seen it, and most people don't believe it until you've seen it.
Well, I believe you because I want you to believe me. I tell you what, but that's what keeps us going back. There's no doubt. Kevin, I'm gonna guess. I'll go out on a limb. I'm gonna guess your favorite eating fish might be a scamp grouper. Would that be it?
I would say that's definitely the top 2. I would say my top 2 favorites are scamp and gag grouper. Definitely.
Well, give me a good grouper recipe.
Oh gosh, I like to pan fry them with a little, I do a flour bath, an egg wash, panko breadcrumbs with a little lemon zest in it, and I fry those till they're just golden brown. But my wife makes the most incredible homemade tartar sauce with capers and all that. I mean, that just absolutely makes it fantastic. The only way you can mess up groupers to overcook it.
Yep. That's so many fish. That is so many fish. And some fish, in wahoo comes to mind immediately. Some fish, if you overcook it, you can almost throw it away. I mean, it's just not good at all. But you're right.
Tuna.
The big tuna's another one. Bingo.
Yeah.
But I tell you right now, you are correct in the fact that most people, the number one mistake people make cooking fish is overcooking it.
Absolutely. I get it I just get it right before it's done, take it off and let it finish on the plate. And you don't, the thing about groupers, you don't need to do much to it. Mm-hmm. Don't add a lot of stuff to it. I mean, maybe some mango salsa, something like that when it's done, but don't do much to it.
Right. I'm with you. Cap, we appreciate it as always, and tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, we'll be back here next week. We'll be finishing up the red snapper season, but we'll be here.
Yeah, I hope you're not taking a nap when I call. Thank you, Cap.
All right, Cap.
Take care, Kevin Lanier. Captain Kevin Lanier wraps up our report for this evening. I tell you what, it's been a good trip around the state, and there's been some good news. We don't often see great bites in July, but let's talk about cobia. There's quite a few of them in East Central, quite a few of them down around Stewart. Man, I hope they're moving north up into the northeast section. I know the kingfish fishermen would love that. The sailfish bite out of Stewart has been insane. I cannot believe that many sailfish biting, 12, 15 per boat down there in the middle of July, almost the end of July, and those fish are still going. Everybody's catching mangrove snapper. Best mangrove snapper year that we've seen in a long time. Captain Nick Stanczyk is back on the swords already, said that they've had some good bottom fishing. Their mangrove snapper fishing, their mangroves are spawning, and they're doing very, very well with them. You come around down in the southwest corner, it seems like between 10,000 islands in southwest Florida, the fishing never slows down. Well, you know what? That's pretty accurate. They're doing very, very well on snook, doing very, very well on trout and reds. I guess the lone downer for this week was the red tide in Captain Ray Markham's area. That is such a sad situation. I feel for them. They were just getting over it, and now it's back again. Get on up into the Big Bend. William Tony's happy as can be. Said he's catching 13-inch sea bass in 8 feet of water in the Big Bend. I could get into that now. I promise you. Have him make me a shore lunch out of that. Head on out to Captain Kevin Lanier. The snapper bite goes right on. He's still catching 20-pound snapper. That season will be wrapping up next week. So it's been fun traveling around the state tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I sure have. There's one thing you can count on. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast will be back next week with another trip around the state to bring you the latest from the water. Until then, for Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and we'll see you on the reel.